Today, we have with us from Columbia University there in New York City, Professor Dr. Carl Hart. How you doing, Carl?
Good to see you, Dean, man.
Well, good to see you. It's I don't know, these last 7 years since we interviewed there on that front porch. I think it was somewhere in Brooklyn, if I recall.
Your
Um,
memory is really good. You're
uh,
right.
a lot of change has happened, but a lot of change is still lacking as well. Am I right?
Yep, there is. You hit that on the head. At that time, I believe when we talked, I don't even know if, yeah, marijuana had been legalized in Colorado and Washington, but it hadn't taken effect in either state yet, I don't think.
I think you're right, Carl. Now, this new book of yours, I've got the copy right here. I want to hold it up for the viewers. It is Drug Use for Grown-Ups, Chasing Liberty in the Land of Fear. And there's a lot of truth in those few words there as well. Fear runs the drug war, does it not?
That's right. Fear is a big component of the drug war, but hatred of specific groups is another component of it. And probably the biggest component of it is economic, the money.
Well, and that has gone on over the decades, the century of this drug war. It goes from drug to drug, from worry to worry, from fear to fear, but it's always mm, a means to control and subjugate certain people, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one goal of the drug war. But today there's a large component that deals with the money, and that we can't forget about that, particularly as we are experiencing this global pandemic. A lot of people lost their jobs, which is horrible. And one way that we have kind of provided relief for people is to offer them positions in the war on drugs. And so it helps them to support their families. And so we can't forget about that component, because it's important that people get jobs and are employed, and that they feel like they are human. That's really important. But the problem with employing them in the war on drugs is that people are paid as a result of other people's suffering, or their pay is dependent upon other people's suffering, which
Yeah.
is that's the problem. The thing that I hope the book does is that it forces people to look or ask the question, particularly people that you're talking about, like the marijuana users. They know that they've been lied to about marijuana for so long, and they know it, and that's why they are active in terms of marijuana, or they are activists to change marijuana laws. If you've been lied if you've been lied to about marijuana, I hope they ask. Then, is it possible that you've been lied to about cocaine, about heroin, about these other things? And I submit to you, if they really think about it honestly and openly, they will answer that question not with a yes, but a hell yes. Because um, the pattern of vilifying marijuana is the same as that as vilifying cocaine, the same as that as vilifying heroin or some other drug. The same is true with amphetamine. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, particularly if you have to get things done. When you think about going to concerts and all the rest of these things, where a band comes into town and they are on a tour, and you paid your money for this night, and they played last night, the night before that, and you actually want them on amphetamine so they can be up to perform for you to the standard that you think that they should be at. And they probably are on some stimulant. And this is a sort of common sort of thing. It's not really an issue. But of course, there are people who can get in trouble with amphetamines or any other drug. And that's where in the book I try to explain that the majority of people don't get in trouble with these drugs. Only a small minority does. And this minority has received all of the attention. And that's the problem, because then we think that, oh, this drug's effect is only this, and it causes these problems. And that's where our childish conversation about drugs has focused primarily. And I'm asking people to have a more grown up conversation. You know, it's like how do you live in a world where these things exist and you just coexist and you make sure it's as safe as possible? Just like we do with driving automobiles. That's a really potentially dangerous activity. Every year, 40,000 Americans lose their life in car accidents every year.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about banning cars because of that. Whereas with drugs, we get crazy about that, in large part because there is money in banning drugs for a select group of people in our society. And then it also allows them to subjugate certain groups of people in our society. And so I think that's the real sort of function of the war on drugs. It's not to control, like, it's not to say like, to ban or rid a society of drugs, because that's never going to happen. It's really to subjugate a certain group of people and to make sure another select group of people have a steady income flow.